Hey, what's up, you guys? I just wanted to come on here just to share some things with you. This is a subject I feel is something that will really help us out in the long run. And I've just been thinking about this for a couple of days, today and yesterday, about this. And I think that this is something that will really help us out, in the long run as we continue to uphold the legacy of, of musicianship and the excellence and the reputation of musicianship, and that's exactly what I want to talk to you about: the reputation and the legacy of musicianship. And so, for us as musicians, as singers, as songwriters, and creatives, music really gives us a chance to really express ourselves and, to really, express how we feel. And it gives us a chance to communicate and convey a message, to people, that will really inspire people and give people a sense of hope and, to really encourage and empower people, you know, and and music is just one of the greatest ways of just communicating, and it's one of the greatest art forms ever created. It gives us a chance to really communicate, you know the different kind of feelings that we share, and just a positive message, a message of love, a message of encouragement, a message of hope, you know and so it's something that really helps us, continue to stay hopeful for the future, and everything. And understanding that it's something that really brings us all together. Music is a universal language, and it brings us all together. You know, when when we can't convey our feelings with words, we can easily convey it with music. Whether if it's through our hands or whether if it's just using our voice and singing. And so music gives us a chance to communicate and convey what's on our heart. And it's a beautiful thing. You know, and as it pertains to musicianship, as it pertains to the excellence of musicianship and its reputation and its legacy, for me, I grew up in the 90s, and listening to different styles of music, listening to gospel music like groups like Hezekiah Walker and Love Fellowship, Donald Lawrence and Tri-City, um, Orlando Draper and the Associates, Fred Hammond and Radical for Christ, and Kirk Franklin and the Family, Yolanda Adams, and Donnie McClurkin. All these artists, of course, and even back in the 80s with Andre Crouch, Richard Smallwood, Thomas Whitfield, Daryl Coley, Vanessa Bell Armstrong, the Clark sisters, and the list just goes on and on. The Winans, of course. Um, yeah, and even back in the late '60s and in the '70s with the Hawkins family, of course, you know, and so all that gospel music, and of course, growing up in the '90s, with '90s R&B groups like Jodeci, TLC, SWV, Escape, Tony Tone, and Vogue. The list just goes on and on. Growing up listening to different artists like Faith Evans and all that, Monica, all those artists from back in the '90s, and um, and even in the '80s with pop and things like that, with Michael Jackson and Whitney Houston, God rest their souls, and so yeah, just growing up with all that music. In the '70s, of course, with Earth, Wind and Fire, Stevie Wonder, um, and the list just goes on and on. Cool and the Gang, and just all the artists that I grew up, listening to. And and the thing about their music is, in listening to their music, even to this day, you know, what's beautiful about these groups is the fact that they created a body of work that is still loved and appreciated today, you know, and that's something that has inspired me. It has inspired me to create music that will outlive me and will be remembered, and so that's the thing, and so for the generations that preceded us, for them, creating a body of work that is still loved today and still appreciated today, you know, and it's a beautiful thing, you know, and understanding that, the art and the beauty of musicianship, and how the generations before us had laid out the blueprint, laid down the foundation for us, you know, and and we definitely need to continue to uphold that legacy and continue to, to build upon the blueprint that they laid out for us. And, and still, continuing to uphold, what is written in the musician's playbook. And at the same time, for us to be able to write our own chapter as well and leaving our own legacy as well, you know. And so we definitely want to, aspire to be legacy creators as well. Not only just legacy builders, but also legacy creators, for us to create our own legacy in terms of our own ideas, in terms of what it is that we bring to the table, in terms of what it is that we have to contribute, you know. And so that's something that we should always, bear in mind. You know, the very generations that preceded us, that made their contribution, let us make our contribution too, you know. And so that's the thing, And so we all have something to share. We all have something different to bring to the table, you know. And there's room at the table for everything and for everyone, you know. And so we definitely want to, be inspired to make our mark and leave our mark behind as well, and to create something that will outlive us. And so that's always been my that's always been something that really inspired me, is to create something that will outlive me, you know. And so that's the thing, And so even with the OGs, sometimes we refer to them as old timers, And so even with the OGs, we definitely want to continue to uphold, and respect the legacy that they left behind, And, thank God that most of the OGs are still with us, to continue to, walk along with us and to give us good nuggets, to hold on to and to build upon, you know, and understanding that, even when it comes to advice, even when it comes to, getting pointers, getting nuggets, if you will, from the OGs, there are two kinds of ways of receiving the advice, You can either be humble and embrace what it is that they have to teach you, or you can allow the arrogance of your feelings to get the best of you and hinder you from learning and growing, you know? And so you definitely want to, embrace and absorb as much as you can, because that information can really help us out in the long haul, you know, in the long run, excuse me. And so that information will definitely, be a help for us in the long run, you know. And so we definitely want to, continue to, hold on to what it is that they have to share with us. And also knowing that, when it comes to criticism, there are two kinds of criticism. David Caton put it like this: there's constructive criticism and there's also destructive criticism. And so whenever someone, gives us, information that is helpful, that will pretty much prevent us from crashing and burning, if you will, for someone to take us aside and, give us, pointers, on certain things, when to do this, when not to do that, when it's the time to change lanes and things like that, just basic pieces of information that will really, be a help to us, as it pertains to, as it pertains to us, as it pertains to, what it is that we have to contribute as well, you know, and, understanding that, understanding that the generations that preceded us, have been through it, and understanding that, the generations that preceded us are concerned. They're concerned about, the legacy of music and making sure that, the legacy of music is respected, making sure that the legacy of musicianship is respected as well, you know, and, and just continuing to uphold the standard, and at the same time, making our own contribution as well, you know, and, and it's good to be able to, hold on to what was established in the past, and at the same time, bring what it is that we have to bring to the table in terms of the present, and to embrace the future as well. So we definitely want to embrace all three: the past, and the present and the future, you know? And so we definitely want to continue to uphold the standards that the OGs set, for us. And at the same time, let us make our mark as well. Let us be inspired to make our mark and make our own contribution as well, and to write the next chapter in this playbook. Because the musician's playbook is immense, you know? And so, you know, and so the OGs have written all that they have written down. And so there are more pages left, and so now is our time to write the next chapter, as it pertains to what it is that we have to contribute in terms of our own ideas, in terms of our own approach and things like that, you know. And so it's a beautiful thing, the musician's playbook is immense. You can never run out of information. And, you can never run out of pages. And so there are plenty of pages left, And so, now's our time, to share something. And even the generations that will come after us have something to share as well, you know? And so we should always bear that in mind, that each and every one of us has something to share. Each and every one of us has something to bring to the table, you know? And, and it's a beautiful thing to be able to share, to just be able to share with people, what it is that, what it is that is poured inside of us, what it is that we have, to bring, you know? And so it's a beautiful thing. And so we definitely want to continue to, respect the reputation and the legacy of musicianship, you know, and, and understanding that, as far as our own ideas are concerned and everything, and understanding, trying to understand where the OGs are coming from, and understanding that when they correct us, they're basically not telling us that we can't do anything. We can express ourselves. They're basically saying you can express yourselves, but just be selective, just be intentional. Choose your spots wisely. If you're going to improv here, make sure it makes sense. Get in and get out. Don't be all over the place. Don't do too much. Do just about enough, where it makes sense, you know. And so that's basically, what they want us to do, is to be selective in our choices and to respect musicianship, the art of musicianship, and understanding that each and every instrument has a role to play, and understanding that we all need to feed off of each other. Drummers and bass players need to feed off of each other, keeping in the pocket, staying locked and things like that, and at the same time feeding off of each other and all that. Pianists, keyboardists, and organists, that cohesiveness, as far as, being in sync, as it pertains to, the chords and things like that, and to be able to feed off of each other, and, bringing color, to the picture, you know. And so, just really, understanding the beauty of musicianship, the art of musicianship, and upholding the standard, while implementing our own ideas as well, you know. And so the OGs are basically saying that, you can express yourselves, but at the same time, you know, you gotta be mindful. You gotta be mindful of, of what it is that you're doing, because, it's important to have a conversation as a band, And so, being in a band is, it's a conversation. You're having a conversation with friends, and if one person is talking all the way through the band, then nobody wants anything to do with you. They basically don't want anything to do with you because you're talking too much. And so you definitely don't want to talk too much. You definitely want to say what you have to say and get out, and let someone else say something, you know. Um, and that's something that I always, bear in mind. Because when I was younger, I remember coming up as a teenager playing for my former ministry, Apostolic Faith Ministry, when I was a teenager. And I remember playing, getting my feet wet, as a new upcoming musician, and how I was doing too much, and my mentors took me aside and told me, you don't want to do too much, you want to, you you want to make sure that you're serving the music, you know. And so, and that's something that really stuck with me, is to serve the music and to understand that I can express myself, but at the same time, you know, being mindful, being intentional on where to put things, when to do this, when not to do this, to just be selective, to just be, to just be intentional, you know, on what to do, you know, and knowing when to change lanes and when not to change lanes. And so, the basic do's and don'ts, of musicianship. And that's something that I always, hold on to. Um, even as I'm getting older now, that's something I still, hold on to. And it has really helped me out a lot, especially in me, creating, my own music as well, and even as it pertains to, some of the songs that I create, over the years, some of the instrumentals that I created and everything, and even the arrangements of certain cover pieces that I would do and things like that, and understanding that, that people, especially, if people comment on my videos, whether it's on my original material or arrangements of cover pieces, to know how to respond and know when not to respond, because like I said earlier, when it comes to criticism, there's constructive criticism and there's also destructive criticism, and so all the reason why it's so important to be discerning and embracing pieces of information that you feel will work for you, you know, because there are some people who who mean to be helpful, and there are some people who just want to continue to control the narrative because, especially as it pertains to, to some OGs, not all, but there are some OGs who feel the need to continue to control the narrative because some of the OGs, grew up in an age where music was a certain way for them versus right now, and so for some of the older people, who grew up, who grew up in the 70s, who grew up in the 60s, the 50s, during that time, during that age, music was a certain way for them, where, where it's not a question on whether they were only going so far, you know, it was basically what it is that they knew during that time, what it is that they knew, what it is that they learned during that time. And so it's not a question on whether they were only going so far. They were just basically doing what they knew, what was taught to them, you know. And so, and that's something that we definitely need to respect, what it was that the OGs were given, when they were growing up, and to respect that, and to, embrace that. And at the same time, leaving our own mark as well, making our own contribution as well. And so to have the best of both worlds, and so we definitely want to have the best of both worlds. And, and that's something that I always, try to maintain, you know, and understanding, that there is a marriage between simplicity and complexity, you know, and how these two should be one, you know, embracing simplistic and intertwining that with some things that are kind of complex, and making them one, how they should be one, how none of these things, how not one is not important over the other, they're both equally important and they both should be embraced, embrace the simple as well as the complex, building a bridge, you know, and so to build a happy medium, so that both sides are happy, and that's something that I always try to do, you know, and and there are even some people who may, who may comment, who may suggest that, that you're probably doing too much and things like that. That's happened to me a couple times. But one of the things that I'm doing is learning how to, learning when to respond, when not to respond. And the only times I do respond is when someone, makes an assumption about me, based upon what it is that I do and they assume me to be a certain way, and that's a dangerous thing. When you see how someone operates and functions, you know, sometimes we can be so quick to make an assumption on someone based upon how they operate and function, you know, and that's a very dangerous thing to do, you know. And so there were times where I felt like explaining myself to certain individuals who obviously don't know me, who obviously never met me, never had a conversation with me. And so there are times where I felt like explaining myself to them and letting them know that, hey, I don't know who you are, but let me tell you a little bit about me. And so, I definitely, these days, I'm definitely very much more, discerning as it pertains to, commenting, or responding on a certain, responding on, to a certain message, to a certain comment, you know, and, um, and just understanding that, that people, that some people can easily get emotionally triggered, and that's something we definitely want to be careful on, because when one makes an assumption about you and you feel the need to explain yourself to them to the point where it comes off as being, as being vicious, you know, especially if you're, doing like a whole paragraph sentence, a whole paragraph message, I mean, you know, and so you definitely want to be careful on how you respond to people who comment, and make an assumption about you. People who obviously don't know you. And so you definitely want to be careful. And so for me, I'm very careful on, on whether I should respond to this individual or whether I shouldn't respond and just leave it alone. Because not everybody needs to know. Not everybody needs to know, and not everybody wants to know you as an individual. Not everybody wants to talk to you. Not everybody wants to get to know you on a personal level. Because once they see you on stage, if you will, they immediately assume that you're that same person off stage, when it's really not the case. And so all the reason why it's so important to really get to know each other, but only if you want to get to know the individual. You know, and so that's the thing. You know, and so for me, these days I'm very careful about it. And so as far as the reputation and the legacy of musicianship, we definitely want to continue to uphold the legacy and the reputation of it, you know, and understanding that it's the foundation, it's the blueprint, you know, and it should inspire us to continue to strive for excellence. And understanding that we ourselves have a contribution to make as well, that there's so much more that we can add to the playbook, that there's a new chapter being written right now, you know, and so we are the writers of the next chapter. We are the generation who's going to write this next chapter, you know? And so that's the thing, the musician's playbook is immense. And so, there's room for everyone, and more chapters are being written down. And I'm excited to be part of the generation that is writing down the next chapter. And so let's continue to keep this legacy alive and at the same time create our own legacy as well, you know? And so that's the thing, and so let us continue to embrace the OGs. Let us continue to love the OGs and appreciate them, and understanding that, we respect them and that we appreciate them, you know, um, and just understanding that, 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 that some people, that some OGs are, are pretty helpful. And there are some who are pretty blunt and pretty, you know, and pretty stern, you know, um, for different reasons, And so, and so we definitely want to try to understand, where they're coming from, And so let us continue to love and embrace the OGs and continue to, and to continue to uphold the blueprint and the foundation that they laid for us, you know, and for us to make our own contribution as well, you know. And so let's make both sides of the fence happy, you know. And so that's the thing, you know. So I hope you guys got something out of this. This is something I wanted to share with you guys, and this is something I feel that is important, because, you know, legacy is a strong word. Legacy is a powerful word. And it's something that, some of us don't always think about. And it's something that we should think about, you know. And so one will never know what may happen the next day, And so all the reason why we should embrace each day, we should embrace every moment because one will never know what will happen tomorrow, and so that's the thing, and so hope you guys got something out of this. You guys be encouraged, stay inspired. May God bless you. May God keep you. Peace.